what kind of country we're going to be. 4 more years of Georgia, going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world.
Okay, Mr. Biden, if I can,
sure.
Questions of controversy continues today about Hunter Biden, your son's.
There is no controversy about my son. It's all a lie. It's a flat lie because the president has nothing else to run on.
Senator Joseph Biden dropped out of the hunt today, saying the disclosures about his plagiarism in law school and his exaggerations about his academic record made it impossible for him to continue.
I do it with incredible reluctance, and it makes me angry. I'm angry with myself for having been put myself in the position of having to make this choice.
The Delaware Democrat is the second candidate to be forced from the race by questions of character and integrity.
Having put myself into this situation, or having been put in a situation, that is a audio from when he dropped out for actually stealing Neil Kinnock's life story back when he ran. Remember, he's dropped out every time he's run for president. I'm not saying he's dropped out, but he's unofficially dropped out. Since the first story on the hard drive broke Thursday a week ago, Joe Biden, I think, has done 3. Here's what he's done. He's done 3 events. He's done 3 campaign events, these drive-ins. No, just 3. That it was reported in the story Yahoo. Yahoo's got a fabulous story. We're going to talk about it. They're nervous. They're nervous because they understand the tide is turning. Working class whites are starting now to think about this, and working class black males are reevaluating. Those two demographics, both the operant word of the working class, that are both economic nationalists, are considering. And Yahoo's story is brilliant because it says just a tiny shift in these states right now is the difference between victory and defeat of both candidates. But they have taken off the table the Biden landslide. You're in the war room. It's Monday, the 26th of October, the year of our Lord 2020. Now with 17 million listeners on our downloads on our podcast. But more importantly, I think, because you got to see this in living color. Otherwise, how do you catch the Natalie-attired Raheem Kassam, my co-host, and the star of the show, Jack Maxey, the voice of conscience of the deplorables? You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Real America's Voice. That's Dish Channel 219. Howard Diamond, Rob Sig, and the team. John Fredericks down at the thing, co-producers. To thank the guys in Denver, the guys in Richmond for putting the show together, helping us make this happen. Also, Chicago Channel 113 in Comcast Chicago. They're going to be announcing a lot more. What they're doing with John Solomon, Raheem Kassam, the whole team over there, the governor, they're doing amazing work at Real America's Voice, the emerging hot news network. Our other partners, Newsmax. Chris Reddy's better. Chris, you got to get on point here. You got some great guys too, but man, Real America's coming up on you. Newsmax TV and 70 million homes. Of course, G News and GTV. Great article today comes out that GTV, Miles Grove, Steve Bannon, is saving Western civilization. Hey, I don't know if I'd go that far, but let's say this. I'm so proud of G News and GTV for stepping up. Although sometimes they may be a tad over the top, but that's what, hey, it's Chinese tabloid. And boy, the numbers are unbelievable. We're going to talk about the suppression by the mainstream media and really by the social media. Today, in no particular order, because we're backing and filling here as we go. We're going to have Bernie Kerik. I think we've got Rudy G. We got Rudy G set up later. Liz Yore, Oprah Winfrey's former, the woman who did all the oversaw her efforts to stop, this human trafficking, which is horrible. She's a child porn expert and a former prosecutor, and headed up the office in Chicago. She's a hammer. We're going to try to get Chris Balding again on his report that he put out. Zero Hedge had another story about it this morning about how seminal it is, particularly looking at this has been a long-term program on the Bidens. This puts to shame the mainstream media, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, New York Times. You've had decades to investigate this. Shouldn't be coming up in the last 2 weeks of the campaign. Also, note to self, campaign, don't we have an Oppo department? Right? Is there not an Oppo department? In the $2.2 billion you guys, poor President Trump had to go out and raise, Kimberly Guilfoyle's running all over the country. Couldn't a little bit of the use of proceeds go to maybe an Oppo file? Because some of this stuff is just not that, as Jack Maxey's finding out, some of it's just not that hard. When you see an email, you go and it's public documents, and they've made announcements, and they're flying around. Okay, there's so much, and there's also obviously very dark elements to this. That's not my specialty, as people know. It's just not what I do. But I'm more on the financial side of things. My whole thing is it's no conspiracy. The party at Davos is a system. That system has an internal industrial logic to it, right? One of the first things they teach you at Harvard Business School is no nomenclature, no process, no critical path. Then you can deconstruct things. That's how you make change. That's how you make fundamental change. But you have to learn how things work. And things work because they have an internal logic to it. There's an internal logic of how things go, how systems go. And we have a system here. We have a system. In fact, last night they were talking about letters presidents have given each other. It's interesting. The quote they pulled from Obama's letter to President Trump was, please nurture the international order we have and pass it on. And I'm just quoting from it. I think it was over in Yahoo, and I think it was a Washington Post and New York Times article. We've got so much today. We've got breaking news. We actually got scooped by, so I might as well bring in the hammer. I want to start. We got so many guys want to come on, but I want to start with, and this guy is Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit. And here's what a special guy it is. Back in the early days, I'm sounding like an old codger. Back at the beginning, there were only a couple of voices that were breaking outside of this and really starting something different. That was when before Matt Drudge sold out and went to the dark side. But you had two seminal figures. You had Andrew Breitbart and you had Jim Hoft. People don't realize the Tea Party started in St. Louis. It was that first get-together, right? And that first get-together in St. Louis on the 15th of April of 2009. Taxed enough already, I think they called themselves, Tea Party. And all those, Jenny Beth Martin, them had a conference call after that. But it was Jim Hoft coming out of Missouri. People don't realize what good things come out of Missouri. Right now, I'm worried about Missouri in this race. That's the one I'm worried about. Georgia. I'm worried about Arizona. I think you're seeing the shift coming to I think Pennsylvania's coming our way. Wisconsin, I spent all weekend. We're going to have, I think, some of the guys from Northeast Pennsylvania, the Lackawanna County Republican dinner on Saturday night. Eric Trump gave a barn burner. I was supposed to come in and be the closing act. Had a little technical problem, but since we love the Lackawanna, Vish had everything right, so I wasn't yelling and screaming here. A little technical problem up in Lackawanna County. We're going to have those guys up here because I keep saying Northeast Pennsylvania is the key that picks the lock. But this guy's a hero, and the site gets better and better with age. His brother, Joe, I've interviewed him for years over at Breitbart. Joe was a guy expert in Hong Kong, always lived in Hong Kong for many years. I'd always get Joe in the loop on anything to do with Hong Kong when I needed to know what was going on. Joe Hoft is a guy. But the Hoft brothers and Jim Hoft, the founder, publisher, editor, I guess he does everything at Gateway Pundit, but has made that one of the premier sites, and particularly with the demise of Drudge. You've got these new, like Revolver, and you've got National Post, you got these new ones, but you got some old standbys that are there. And the story today, the Hoft brothers, Joe Hoft's on the story and Jim Hoft's the publisher, is pretty shocking. And like I said, this is not our deal, right? But it's got to be addressed. And here's why it has to be addressed. This hard drive is obviously got, and Jack Maxey and the team have spent the weekend, there's so many financial crimes in here and so many unsavory financial relationships that shows the corruption of the permanent political class, because that's what Biden's about. This is not about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's just an instrument, right? And, of course, we put up last night the photo of Hunter Biden in the Oval Office with the President of the United States and Barack Obama. And I don't know, given the track record you've got of all the crack and everything like that, how already been kicked out of the Navy, right, within 30 days, already kicked out of the Navy in 30 days as an officer, how they allow that guy in the Oval Office is pretty stunning to me. Is there a different standard for the Bidens than there is for the rest of America? Because I guarantee you, if you were black, right, and you were Hunter Biden's age, and you had the track record Hunter Biden had, they wouldn't let you on the property. Okay, you would not pass the screening. So he had a waiver from his dad, from daddy, right? And this is just they enable it, enablers. So it shouldn't be lost on you when I talk about Biden quitting. Joe Biden's had 3 events, only 3 events. He's driving things where nobody shows up at 3 events, except he's had, and remember, there's no conspiracy. What's Bannon's dictum? There's no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences. What has happened in the last 2 Sundays? Sunday a week ago, he went for a milkshake with his granddaughter, right? And, of course, the press asking probing questions because that's the New York Post weekend. What flavor milkshake? That's the toughest question you got. What flavor milkshake? This Sunday, Daily Mail's got a huge story pushed out by the Biden campaign. He's going to Mass with guess who? 2 granddaughters, right? I believe our crack staff has looked at it. I think it's the first time the granddaughters have been involved in a campaign, at least a photo op like that. There's no coincidences. And then yesterday he says, right before the Mass, he's got a lid on. There are no more campaign events between now and Election Day for the next 9 days. Why is that? That's why we wanted to play that clip when he caught. Remember, Hillary Clinton and the Clintons, whether you like them, hate them, agree with their politics or not, I was the guy that was on that with Raheem and others for years. They're a hard target. They know how to go to the mattresses, okay? They have been hammered by the new right for a long time. President Obama the same way. Joe Biden's a soft target. He will roll over and quit. And right now he can't take it. He can't take the pressure. And the pressure's not coming from the president's health care plan, Leslie Stahl. The pressure's not coming from the president's tax plan. This is, as Heraclitus says, I get that from my Yale colleague here, character is destiny. And now for the first time, we're actually weighing and measuring Bernie Sanders, who should be the nominee, and Elizabeth Warren. And by the way, for anybody who ever strokes a check for Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, ask, where was their Oppo department? Where was all this stuff in the primary? This should have been vetted in the Democratic primary. Bernie Sanders should be the Democratic nominee, or Pocahontas should be number 2. I don't want to hear all your big talk. You're a populist this, you're a populist that, you got that. You're nothing. Another pillow fight, and you have a neoliberal neocon supported by Wall Street who finished, 5th in Iowa and 4th in New Hampshire, and then miraculously became the nominee. Okay, I'm going to bring Jim Hoft on. We got only 2 minutes left. We got to go to break, but I want to bring Hoft on. Jim, just tease what the headline is in your story. What's the breaking news coming out of Gateway Pundit today? We'll have you back in the next segment to explain it. But what is your breaking news story, sir?
Steve, great to be with you and your crew. The story we put up on Gateway Pundit this morning, which is going viral already, is some of the text messages from Hunter's computer, the computer from hell. They show that the family was colluding to suppress Hunter Biden's actions with a minor, and we posted the text messages on Gateway Pundit. It's damning material.
Okay, we're going to bring Jim Hoft back. We're going to go through all this. We're also going to put up the text that Rudy Giuliani showed. This all came from the hard drive from hell, and the laptop from hell. It's got 2 names already. It's going into legend. This will be in American history. And here's the thing: the campaign knows what's on this. This is what. By the way, now we're playing our out music, and we're playing the video. World premiere, an amazing song. Fight for Hong Kong. Miles Guo. I tell you what, Miles Guo is going to end up being a rock star. When's the Miles Guo concert? When's it? This song is absolutely incredible. I just got it last night. The Fight for Hong Kong leads off with my favorite phrase: take down the CCP. That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. This influence operation. When the President of the United States says that Joe Biden's compromised, it's by the Chinese Communist Party. Okay? This is not about Hunter Biden. It's not about some broken and twisted son. This is about a family that is compromised and wants to be commander-in-chief. We're going to return in a moment with Jim Hoft of Gateway Pundit.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Breaking news of the weekend is that the president's going to fire Wray, the CIA director and the head of DOD, after the day of election. The one scoop that Axios got wrong, it said if he wins, they're fired regardless. Note to self, write this down. They're gone. Ray's gone. And we're going to get back into it. I was the first person to call for Ray being gone, and it's because of this hard drive. He's got to go. And that was weeks ago. We'll have a mashup on that later. I want to go back to Jim Hoft. He's breaking huge news on Gateway Pundit this morning. Kind of scooped us. Walk through. When you say collusion, that's a pretty big term. Walk us through exactly what you've got, and we're going to have it up on the screen so the audience can see it, and the radio audience will walk through it. So, Jim, tell us what you've got and how explosive this is.
Yeah, this is a huge story, Steve. We've heard Joe Biden say repeatedly there's nothing there. As you played earlier, Joe Biden screaming at reporters saying, with Hunter Biden, his son, that's not a story. How dare you ask questions? We've heard that over and over. We heard, if you look at the headlines out there on the internet, you'll see Joe Biden was saying the same thing about the smears against their son. Well, today at Gateway Pundit, we posted some of these text messages from the laptop from hell, Hunter Biden's laptop, and it shows that the family was discussing Hunter Biden and his inappropriate behavior with a minor. The family knew about it. Jill talks about it. Joe talks about it. Joe's brother Jim talks about it. All in these text messages, they're defending Hunter. And as you read these text messages, there's several questions that come up. Who was protecting this girl? It sounds like there was only one adult there who's protecting the girl. Everyone else is. It looks like they're circling the wagons around Hunter Biden, defending him, and it just shows very, very sick and twisted behavior. This has never been exposed until today on Gateway Pundit, but a lot of it, of course, is from some work you've done, Steve. But this is just. I believe if people see this, it's so disgusting. It disqualifies Joe Biden, among other things. But this is really it's a hard-hitting piece, and it's just devastating for the Biden campaign.
Let's go back and get into the granularity because we've got a few minutes here. Let's go back. Walk us through the text themselves, if you could read it for our radio audience, because we have a huge podcast and radio, and we're also on TV and streaming. And our TV audience is able to see. Our TV audience, actually, we have the Gateway Pundit story up. We actually have the text as come from the hard drive from hell. But could you read us the most damning parts of that?
Okay, so the first text message we post is Hunter Biden saying that you need to quit telling people I'm sexually inappropriate with this young minor. The second text message is it goes in and Hunter shares that his mother, Jill Biden, is pushing this claim that Hunter is sexually inappropriate around the children. Hunter says, or my mom tells him things like, I'm sexually inappropriate with the children. So this is something he's sharing in his text messages. There's another message, this one from Jim Biden, saying that him and Joe Biden, Hunter's father, want to meet Hunter when he gets off the plane, and they want to talk about this. They also say that the woman spreading these so-called rumors is lying, but Steve, you know this and I know this. There's actually photos that show that this woman was not lying. They haven't been released, as far as I know.
Well, they're not going to get that. This is what Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani brought in outside experts immediately upon finding it on the hard drive. The experts say, "Hey, this has got to be turned over to authorities immediately," and they went to. This is where Delaware and the Attorney General they went to authorities in Delaware, dropped off this information, and the authorities in Delaware, the Attorney General, totally bought and paid for by Biden, said, "Oh, I sent it to the FBI." I sent it to the FBI. This is why Ray's got to be fired. There should be an intervention immediately. Forget the investigation, everything like that. You got to know if the young child's okay. So, Jim, what? But you're saying walk back through the collusion. What are you saying? The collusion. You're saying the family is most focused on protecting Hunter rather than getting to the problem. Doesn't he say in these texts that it's just the mother making up these stories?
Absolutely. And Hunter's uncle, Jim Biden, is saying, we both agree with you, Hunter, and we trust you, Hunter. She's spreading what you told me, and I believe you, and these are lies. And so this is what it says in the text messages from his uncle, and it says, and then he ends with, when does your plane arrive? I'll pick you up. I love you, pal. And so they're a family in crisis, but they're all there's no talk about this poor child who's being abused and how to help her. And it sounds like her mother is the only one who is raising these red flags. It's very disturbing when you read this. I think it's damning information again. And the family is more focused on Hunter than they are on this child.
You've been at this a long time. You started, at the same time Andrew did back years ago, over a decade ago, right? Long time ago. You were there even before the Tea Party. What disturbs you about how the mainstream media and even Drudge and others are covering this story?
Right. Well, as your listeners and viewers saw last night, President Trump, during his interview with Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes, brings up the Biden scandal. And she just immediately said, oh, no, there's nothing there. Oh, come on, is what she says. And if you listen to that, you're like, this media, they're not just, biased anymore, Steve. They've ratcheted it up to a new level to where they're just openly lying to the American people and refusing to report the truth. There is enough information out there today online, of course, not in the mainstream media. And by the way, Steve, this weekend when the Gateway Pundit broke some news about with some video and photos, and we were very careful with what we posted. Twitter took that down. Facebook took it down. And not only took our stories down, but they suspended anyone who retweeted our story for 12 hours. So they've ramped it up to a new level too. It's like communist China today in the U.S., Steve. They're not just blocking our stories and shutting them down. They are suspending anyone who dares to tweet out our stories on this scandal. It's something I've never seen before. They've just ratcheted up to a new level, and this. It's just like how the Chinese operate.
GTV and G News are saying that in the whistleblower movement, the new federal state, all the people that have left China defected. They said, "Hey, you guys have a tougher firewall over here in the United States. I mean, the firewall here. You and Jack Maxey and Raheem are going to get into more detail about that later." Okay. Jim, we want to try and have you back later to go into more depth, but where's Gateway Pundit's reporting on this story and the entire hard drive from hell going?
Well, we have a couple follow-up posts that we're going to put up probably tomorrow morning. The next one, there's a lot of information in this hard drive from hell, as you know, but we have another big story coming up tomorrow, and so it's going to be a crazy week, but this is I thank you for having me on because this is such important news that people really need to hear about.
Oh no, Gateway Pundit you're one of the best. So Jim, thank you very much. We're linking to Gateway Pundit. We're going to try to have Jim back on today and throughout the week as Gateway Pundit as the cutting edge of breaking news and this story. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. I want to thank all of our new viewers that are coming in too. You can get us everywhere. We're ubiquitous and we're free. We're ubiquitous and we're free. You got a podcast to choose from. You can go to YouTube. We got Real America's Voice, Dish Channel 219. They're also streaming. We got Newsmax, G News, GTV. We're throughout the world. I want to thank the guys from Australia. That the Sherry Markson interview I gave for Sky News in Australia, I think has almost 4 million views on it. Wow. So they're all over it. I want to go. Part of the breaking news we're doing. And Jim got the story, but this thing's got to be expanded out. Listen, remember, this is not my deal. I was brought into the hard drive from hell because of my knowledge of the Chinese Communist Party and their infiltration of the West, right? That's one of my specialties. And so I was able to go through and see the companies and think, but the Chris Balding Typhoon report is so magnificent of how they lay it out. That's why Zero Hedge and others have been putting that up for people to see, because you see that it's a long-term, they're playing the long game. And Tiger Yang, the very first guy he flies over, I think it was in early December, late November, after we won, and we had Taiwan included into a phone call with the president. Took a phone call from President-elect took a phone call from Taiwan. They melted down because we'd already gone India, Korea, Japan. We did the whole Australia, and that was the last one. They melted down, and who they send over to talk to Jared and myself was Tiger Yang, and he's not a pleasant fellow. Okay, he hates the United States completely. This is a bad hombre. Okay, and he comes over, and I'm the guy, Jared, because Jared is observant Jewish. So he was at Temple on Saturday, so I did both the Friday and Saturday session. Flynn took one day, Jared took the other. I took both. So I had the pleasure of his company. He's a bad unit, okay? He's a bad unit. Detests the United States. He's the guy, former ambassador to China. He was the interpreter for Deng Xiaoping when Deng came in the after Jimmy Carter cratered, and Mika's dad cratered and recognized these guys, right? Gave them full recognition without anything on their side. He was ambassador to the United States in the early 2000s. Was all over Joe Biden. Okay, now we're going to play. This is "Fight for Hong Kong." It's a new story, a new song by Miles Guo. Later, when we get the official video, we'll put the official video up too. But this thing, let's crank some volume here. I love this song. I'm not a dancer, but I might start dancing here in the war. No dancing in the war room.
Trump dancing, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's not pretty. Miles Guo, "Fight for Hong Kong." It's our new out music.
Everything's just beginning for the games you want to play. Bring it on and I will fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started. Everything's begun, and you are over. 'Cause we're taking down the CC.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to Urban Pandemic. I want to welcome all of our new viewers. We cover here the pandemic, the financial crisis it triggered, the global capital crisis it's covered, everything of the pandemic. We're going to have Jack Maxey later as another surge in Europe. And, of course, Mark Meadows yesterday says we're not focused on the pandemic. I think his whole answer, if you listen to it, is pretty smart. They're not surrendering on that. They're focused on therapeutics and vaccines. We're going to get into all that. It's still the beating heart of this, and the reason is because the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is responsible for this. They're accountable for this. They have not been held accountable for this. The whole reason I'm involved at all in the hard drive was because of the Chinese Communist Party, and quite frankly, the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party and how the Biden family has been compromised. It's just not even a question. Okay, this is not even a question now. The mainstream media and the people should just dismiss it. These people are horrible. Where's the K-file on CNN on the Bidens? And where have they been for 10 years on this thing? Because this just didn't happen overnight. But working class people are going to have a full access to this. The most disturbing part of this, though, it doesn't even have to do with the or the most immediate disturbing thing of it doesn't have to do with how they've sold the country out, which is bad enough. But it's one of the instruments in that. Remember, this is not a story. It's never been a story about Hunter Biden. It's not where's Hunter. It's not a story about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is merely the bagman. Hunter Biden's the new business guy. Hunter Biden's drinking what the client's drinking. Okay, he's the guy out there running around. It is that the family business is quite simply it's monetizing access to Joe Biden. The Chris Balding, and we're getting this the confidential report that's up from Typhoon Investigations lays this out, and Zero Hedge does a great job with Balding of playing out. We had Balding on the Saturday show. We're trying to get him back on today. This shows you Zero Hedge lays it out. The Biden family is bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist state. Let me repeat that. The Biden family is bought and paid for by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese state. They cannot defend this, and this is why Joe Biden is in hiding. This is exactly, he doesn't want to answer any questions about this. And now that Jim Hoft and others are breaking the story about, his behavior and how he comports himself and the depravity and how this hasn't, and remember, there's no coincidences. Why does he have the granddaughter out for the first time 2 Sundays ago and the story's breaking to get a milkshake? Why does he then go and take both granddaughters to for the first time, take them on Sunday to Mass for a big show, for a photo op? Not taking any questions, but a big show. No conspiracy, but no coincidences. And now he goes into hiding. And because here's the reason they have him in hiding. They know he can't take the pressure. He will collapse like he did when they caught him out on the Neil Kinnock lie, and they found the thing about what Rudy keeps talking about his plagiarism in law school. But the most disturbing thing is what happened in his character about the responsibility for these children. I want to bring in Bernie Kerik, and Bernie was not looking for problems here. It was just what came up on the hard drive as you drilled down on this. Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani being the legendary, historic law enforcement officers, and then brought others in to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And now Jim Haas breaking more news about it. So, Bernie, here's what's so disturbing. And I called for Ray to be fired immediately, even before, but really doubled down on when this happened. You and Rudy got this information as you had to because of the reporting requirements, and you went to Delaware immediately. That was Monday a week ago. Here we are, Monday the 26th. We're 1 week after. What is happening? I thought in the way these laws are drafted to protect children, I thought things had to be like investigated or interventions or things like that immediately. Tell us, our audience, exactly what is going on.
Well, Steve, we went down a week ago, met with the Newcastle police authorities. That's the county that has jurisdiction over the area where they live, where the child lives, where Joe Biden lives. And we gave them, presented to them, a pretty substantial amount of evidence that would lead someone to understand and believe that there was child endangerment. There were things going on that shouldn't be going on. And within the guidelines of Delaware law, there were violations of criminal law, and there was a reporting requirement for us to report this. You know, normally in most states, many states, there's a reporting requirement for police officers, for public servants, for doctors. In Delaware, my understanding is that the law says anyone with that kind of insight or knowledge must report it to the authorities. As soon as we went through it and we found what we found, we went down, we physically drove down to Delaware, went to the authorities, delivered the evidence in photos, text messages, and then the hard drive. And normally, under any other conditions, for example, in New York or in New Jersey, where I live, if somebody walked into a police station and gave them what we gave Delaware, within 24 hours, there would be a site inspection. There would be an interview with the child. There would be an investigation conducted by Child Welfare Services. I don't know if Delaware did that. We haven't heard anything on it. I would hope they did it, because if they didn't, it would be, it would be terrible if they didn't. But what we do know is that they took the evidence we gave them, the county authorities, they gave it to the state attorney general, and by midnight that night, we heard that the state attorney general had turned over what we presented to them to the FBI. That doesn't take care of the child. That doesn't, we already know the FBI had this hard drive since December 9th. That's when they picked it up. My concern is, did this county or the state authorities, have they seen the child? Have they interviewed the mother? Have they interviewed Hunter? Have they gone back through the text message? And Jim Hoft's thing this morning is just another confirmation that there were more problems than we even knew about, more conversations that we knew about, which is why somebody, somewhere has to check on the child, has to interview Hunter, has to interview the child's mother, and maybe has to interview Joe Biden and his wife to determine what was going on and what they did about it.
Are you one of the questions that the left keeps throwing up is that this is just you and Rudy intruding in the last fight in the desperate attempt to save a failed presidency. So you're going after in the low what Jake Tapper continues to refer to as a heinous play by the most hardcore and demented of the Trump crazies, and you and Rudy at the top of that. You've been a law enforcement officer all your life. Is there any doubt in your mind, particularly after you brought in those outside guys to take a look at it independently that had no association with you and Rudy, is there any doubt in your mind that what you took to Delaware was at the level that an investigation should have been done or an intervention should have been done?
Absolutely, 1,000%. You know, I keep hearing all this stuff about Russian disinformation, you know, between the networks and the political players on the left. Here's the only, I hate to say this and make a joke out of it, but here's the only way this could be Russian disinformation. The Russians would have had to hypnotize Hunter Biden to walk into the Mac store and drop that computer off, his own computer, that I had to hypnotize him to get him to do that. He walked in, he delivered it, it was his computer, and we have a hard drive of what was on it, as does the FBI. The FBI has a hard drive, and they also have the computer. Don't tell me it's Russian disinformation. Don't tell me those videos, those photos are of Hunter Biden.
So we've been 9 days. We've been
not,
we've been 9 or 10 days into putting out information. By the way, Rupert Murdoch, who owns the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal and the Sun of London and Fox News, I think he's got $80 billion to $100 billion of publicly traded market capitalization. A pretty sophisticated team at the New York Post, a paper founded by Alexander Hamilton, one of the oldest papers in the country. I think it's the third or fourth biggest paper in the country. It has award-winning reporting all the time and doesn't lose lawsuits. They know what they're doing on the technical side. They know what they're doing on the legal side. Also, we have not heard from one surrogate of the Bidens. We haven't heard from one of their running dogs. We haven't heard from the Bidens themselves. Not one person has refuted a photograph, a text message, or an email that's coming out. And Jack Maxey's got so many more emails with financial crimes in it that are coming out over the weekend and in the next couple of days. So, Bernie, where do you? We got a couple of minutes in this thing. Where do you think we stand with you and Rudy finding out? Is the FBI investigating? Is Delaware just punted this? I think people are sitting there going, leave the presidential election aside, leave all of that aside. Obviously, what's most important is the welfare of the young girl. Is there any way to understand, has any authority, any adult, anybody that's in a position of fiduciary responsibility over this, had any contact, intervention, questioning, interview, investigation? And just because the FBI has it, what are you and Rudy going to do about it?
Well, listen, I think anybody that's interested, whether whether there's been contact with the family, they've got to contact the county police. We haven't heard anything back. Nobody's gotten back to us. I feel, Steve, that the press, the mainstream media, they hate Trump so bad, they don't give a damn about this kid. They don't care they don't care what happened. I'm kind of shocked by the whole thing, that it's this grotesque. But at the end of the day, and if I was, I got to tell you, put the politics aside. What did the FBI do? What did the FBI do from December 9th? If I was the president, I'll put it this way: if I worked for Rudy Giuliani, and this thing went untouched and unlooked at for 10 months, I'm telling you, I would have been fired. So somebody has to make a determination what the FBI did, who made the determination not to do anything if they didn't do it, where they're at this point. Those questions have to be asked. Politics aside, I don't give a damn about the election. The bottom line is there are crimes committed that anybody else in this country would go to jail for, would be locked up for already. They'd be in handcuffs, whether it's the financial crimes. That stuff Jack Maxey found is insane. The SEC violations, completely insane. Anybody else would be in handcuffs and be locked up right now pending trial.
Bernie, how do people get access to your Twitter handle? I know you got your WABC show. By the way, the show on Saturday was incredible. You and Jack Maxey. It was. I hope Jay Clayton and the guys at the SEC were listening, because you guys worked through a series of hardcore financial violations. Tell about your show. We got about a minute. Your show, and how do people get you on your Twitter handle?
Bernard Kerik on Twitter, and ABC Behind the Badge, WABC Radio, Saturdays, 2 p.m. And you can get on the website and go back and look at all my prior shows.
Bernie, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all the efforts that you've had in this.
Thanks, guys.
Bernie Kerik, former police commissioner. Okay, our out music, we're eventually going to have the video in the next segment. Our out music is Fight for Hong Kong, Miles Guo's latest.
with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room, Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
All right, welcome back to the War Room on this Monday, October the 26th, the year of our Lord 2020. I know we've got such a massive and new audience, gentlemen, here, especially in the YouTube Live. I think we're up to 14,000 people now there. And I know a lot of people are joining this story halfway through. So I want to reset very quickly. What we're talking about here is the hard drive from hell. This is Hunter Biden's hard drive that he left with this repair shop in Delaware, was turned over to the FBI. FBI has sat on this thing, and it's taken, Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Kerik, Stephen K. Bannon, and others to start going through this and pull out the most interesting details. Now, there are some incredibly salacious things on this drive. There are some incredibly disturbing things on this drive. But Jack Maxey and myself and others, Jack Posobiec and others, and Jim Hoft have been going through some of this stuff, and we've been looking at, Jack, some of the more financial elements, the political elements. So I'm just going to introduce the story we have as lead on the National Pulse right now, which is how Hunter Biden wrote to this Mexican businessman, and he said to him in an email, "Hey, I really appreciate you letting me stay at your resort villa. I have brought every single person you have ever asked me to bring to the effing White House and the vice president's house and the inauguration, and then you go completely silent. I don't hear from you for months." You want to talk about a quid pro quo in writing there? You want to talk about nepotism? You want to talk about corruption?
FARA
violations. It's all in that one line.
Paul Manafort's in prison because of this.
And
Hunter Biden's a different deal.
And when one person books a hotel room at the Trump International Hotel, it's breaking news on NBC and Axios and everything. This is everything right here. And Jack, I know you've got a whole lot more deep dive and financial stuff on this. I just want to give you a hat tip, by the way, because one of the most recurring characters in this email chain, all these hundred thousands of emails, is Eric Schwerin. And you called out Eric Schwerin, and we called out Eric Schwerin at the weekend. What's Eric Schwerin done?
Eric Schwerin pulled his Twitter feed about 15 minutes after we had spoken about him on Friday. Now, Eric at the time, I think, had about 45 followers, but he probably got at least 45 phone calls.
Hey, if it's Russian disinformation, do you pull your Twitter account? Do you go dark? Do you try to hide everything?
No way.
If it's fake,
am I answering as CNN or a rational person? CNN would say that the Russians pulled his Twitter feed.
Right.
Now, what's so important about this, and this is why it's so important that we leave the FBI out of this for a second, okay? There has been clear financial fraud that has been committed on the part of Jimmy Bolger's firm, has been committed on the part of Rosemont Seneca. Now, the people who have exposure to Rosemont Seneca and Bolger are some of the biggest names on Wall Street. You have to understand, if these guys were in debt to the GP on all these Bohai deals, and they did not disclose that to the people that
the GP's general partner.
The general partner. And they did not disclose that to the other limited partners to which they sold interest in that fund. It's all a fraud.
We're going to explain all of this to our audience that's coming in. You have both look, the pull the camera back. The issue here is how they're compromised as a national security issue by the Chinese Communist Party. All the money and the railhead of all the cash is coming from China. Now, you have side pockets. You have a Mexico side pocket. You got a Ukraine side pocket. They're all side pockets. And they're interesting for their own corruption and how corrupt these guys are. I mean, we've got the deals trying to take over Pemex. You've got that'll be developed over time. You have securities violations. But the centerpiece is their compromise by the Chinese Communist Party and how this has gone for a long time. You got Bobulinski's affidavit. You now have the Professor Balding's Typhoon investigation report that sets the framework for it. Every day we're going to explain this to you so you know that you've been sold down the river. This is not economic populism. This is not economic nationalism. This is the way the system works. This is the way the permanent political class who really have no talent except access to power. So Wall Street, the City of London, the Chinese Communist Party are prepared to pay for that access, and that's why guys like his brother James Biden, and his son Hunter Biden, they're instruments. They are instruments in the monetization of high office. And what is so shocking, and this is why I don't want to hear Leslie Stahl and CBS, hey, we don't need you for the story. On Uranium One, I needed the New York Times. Don't need you now. right? And it doesn't matter how much Twitter and Facebook pull it down. The more you pull this stuff down, the more people just want to see it, right? It's the Streisand effect. So we don't need you. We don't need validation by the Washington Post. We don't need validation by CNN. We don't need validation by the New York Times. I needed it back then. Don't need it now. So you guys are just going to have to embrace the suck because you're not getting a hard drive until after the evening of November 3rd. Okay? After November 3rd, I'm gonna have New York Times. Hey, here's your hard drive. Here's your hard drive. Have all the hard drives you want because the investigation of the Bidens are going to go on for a long time. Win, lose, or draw, because they have to be made an example of, because we're not going to let our country be sold out to the Chinese Communist Party. We're not going to let a bunch of, and I come from an Irish Catholic working class family, so we're not going to let a bunch of mix, right? A bunch of mix, like the Bidens are, they brag about it all the time. We're not going to let a bunch of mix sell out our country to the Chinese Communist Party, and that's coming from a working class hammerhead Mick, okay? We're not going to let you do that. You're going to be held accountable. Now, part of this story also then gets into where are the standards, where's the accountability, where's all that, because you've got literally your bagman happens to also be depraved and out of control, okay? Depraved and out of control. And then that gets into a whole nother aspect of it. I want to bring in, we only got a minute, but I want to bring in introduction. We're going to go over to the next segment. I think we got Rudy G for that, so we're going to have to, but we got a stalwart of this whole situation. It's Liz Ure. And Liz, what I'd like to do, particularly for our new audience, I want you to walk through your bona fides when it comes to human trafficking, child endangerment. Just give your resume. We got about 60 seconds.
Sure, Steve. I was general counsel of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, one of the largest statewide child abuse organizations in the country. I was general counsel and head of the cyber tip line at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That's the clearinghouse, the National Clearinghouse for Children. And for 6 years, I was special counsel to Oprah Winfrey, handling child protection issues. So I have 30 years of child protection expertise, human trafficking, child pornography investigations. And so this case, when I saw this, both the text messages and the background of this case, it's a classic incest case. On steroids, I might add, because of the power behind the throne. But, I'm unlike other people, Steve. I feel this case is not so much about Hunter Biden as it is about the head of this family who is in charge of protecting these children. And now we know from the text.
Liz, we're going to bounce. We're going to bring you back in the next, right in the next hour. Be back in a minute with Liz Ure.